What's up? Welcome into this Monday afternoon edition of Pushing the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. We got a lot of reaction from the Wildcard Weekend that was. We got one more game of the Wildcard Weekend that is, should I say, here on Monday night as well. And we have the big news off the top, though. Just came down the pike. Mike McCarthy, a week after Black Monday, is no longer the Cowboys head coach. His contract, they just let it expire. He is gone. He's free to go wherever he likes at this point. I want to start with your guys' reactions, and I'll start with you, Matt. What was your first thought to hear the news that Mike McCarthy no longer Dallas Cowboys head coach?
I wasn't surprised. I'm not surprised. I'm just surprised at the timing. Like, why didn't we make moves, a week ago? Given that it seemed like they wanted to move in this direction. So, I don't know. I don't know what the conversations that they had, in the last week, if there was last ditch effort on either side to be like, hey man, let's work this out. But I don't think it's surprising. I think Mike McCarthy's been a good coach in this league for a long time. Obviously, he's a Super Bowl champion during his time in Green Bay. They had, a lot of regular season success early on in Dallas for him too, right? Won a lot of ball games. But it just looked like to me a change. They just need fresh blood in there. And I kind of felt that way, even early on in the season. And so I think over the overarching theme here for me, not surprising. Now I'm interested, to see where they turn, to see where they go. This is a big job, man. This is, to me, there's 5 jobs like this in the NFL. The Dallas Cowboys, the Chicago Bears, both teams in New York and Philadelphia, where you've got a media market that is on top of you, that's suffocating. And, I think you need the right person for that position. And so I'm curious to see where it goes, but I'm not surprised by the move.
Yeah, it's obvious, like you said, new blood needs to get into that building. There were a lot of question marks on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, injuries hampered the offensive side of the ball. Dak Prescott finishing the season in the sweep. But to your point, start fresh, pivot in a new direction. Mike McCarthy, a winning coach in the National Football League, a guy who gets on well with his players. You can see that reflected in the effort that they got from the Cowboys down the stretch. For a team that was, in essence, out of it at the midway point in the season, these guys fought and battled. But they do have some bridge talent that will help a new coach figure out how to have success in Dallas. But to Matt's point, this is one of the crown jewel franchises in the NFL as it pertains to big markets and high expectations. So 5 years, and that's it for our guy Mike McCarthy. And they've got streets named after the guy in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and Mike can echo that sentiment. And I know that the Bears fans are keeping their eye peeled on Mike McCarthy as a potential suitor for that head coach job.
I'm with you, Matt. I can't say I'm surprised that this happened. With the Cowboys, it seems like they let every negotiation over the past handful of years go down to the deadline. So for their head coach to take it right down to the deadline of renegotiating him, it's not surprising. That's just how the Cowboys have, unfortunately for Cowboys fans, done business. But I think this is maybe a little bit foolish, maybe a little bit short-sighted, because I'm not sure this job is as in demand as maybe the brand of Dallas Cowboys might make it seem. Because one, you're in a division now with the Philadelphia Eagles and Jayden Daniels. That is not going to be an easy division going forward. And two, you have a cap situation that basically says we cannot add anything else to this roster going forward. This is the roster that you're dealt. You cannot make it in your image. You can sign street free agents. You cannot go and sign splash free agents. We do not have the cap space. We almost don't have the cap space to resign the guys we have in the fold. Yes. Yeah.
For next season.
Yes.
To me, it is, okay, is there let's go find a young head coach that maybe we're going to say, I understand next season is not our season, but we're thinking longer term, right? We're really trying to, take a different approach than we've taken the last 3 hires, from the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know. I'll be curious to see how it shakes out. That star on the helmet, man, I still think it means something.
Now,
It does give
you
a
point
lot of
out that it's a tough division with Jayden Daniels and with the Philadelphia Eagles being in that division, and a lot of coaches wouldn't be up for that challenge. But I would argue that there are some salty veteran coaches that would look to have a crack at that thing. And I like Matt's idea about getting a young coach in there with the understanding that we're thinking long term. But if Jerry is like, hey, I think we got enough pieces here in Dallas so we can bring somebody in here and change the flavor of the soup a little bit, and people might be liking it. So I don't know. There are a few names out there, I'm sure, that are not coaching right now, and then maybe there's a few that are under contract elsewhere. I'd be interested to see what direction the Dallas Cowboys go.
I did have to laugh, though. I saw Jordan Schultz of Fox Sports report that what I've been saying all year, Bill Belichick was apparently interested in this job. The Cowboys have interest in him, yet Bill Belichick now the head coach of North Carolina. Don't think that one's going to be happening. All right, let's get some quarterback observations from Wildcard Weekend, because we had some standout performances and we had some head-scratching ones. Let's start with the standouts. Lamar Jackson, the playoff Lamar reputation that, whether you think it's unearned or earned, did not show up on Saturday night against the Baltimore Ravens, against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Matt, what did you see from Lamar, and is he kind of shaking off all that reputation that he's built up over the years?
I thought he played really well. I loved the way Todd Monken used him. 5 of the first 8 plays were zone read. 4 of those first 5 zone reads were pulls, and he took off and he was running. The 5th is a 10-yard gain, I think, for Derrick Henry, right? And so they came in with a clear game plan. We're going to put Lamar on the edge. We are going to use him. And if you're going to try and take him away, good luck. We're going to let Derrick Henry go right up the middle. So, number one, I like the way that they eased into that ball game for Lamar. Number two, I thought him throwing crossing routes during the game was really impressive, right? The touchdown was a beautiful throw early on, kind of going through that progression. They're playing man coverage. They've got 2 hole players, and Bateman just keeps coming across. That ball was thrown with beautiful touch and anticipation. I thought he threw some nice crossing routes to Isaiah Likely, but it was his legs that got him going. I think it was efficiency in the pass game. I don't think the numbers jump off the charts at you, but that ball game was never even close. Regardless of it just being a 28-14 game, it just felt like that was a route right from the start. So loved the game plan, loved the way he executed. He looked calm, he looked poised, he looked like he wasn't trying to do anything more than he had to. And I think the Ravens are in the driver's seat, man. I like the way they're playing. Their defense has gotten better, but Lamar, to me, whatever the narrative was coming in, I thought he played excellent the other night.
You say they're in the driver's seat. I say they're in the gunner's seat, and they are piloting a friggin' tank right now because of the fact that they brought in Derrick Henry.
Where's the fighter jacket, man?
Yeah, I mean, because of the fact that defense is coming around, it just takes so much pressure off Lamar Jackson. In years past, we've seen him have to elevate his game when everybody else on the field from the opposing team elevates their game in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson is the biggest part of what that culture in Baltimore stands for. Obviously, you think Pittsburgh, you think culture, but they don't have the leadership on the offensive side of the ball to be able to carry that over when you cross the lines. Lamar Jackson is an extension of John Harbaugh. He is an extension of that offensive staff. And I played with guys who have been with Lamar before, and they rave about his leadership. And he's stoic out there. You bring in Derrick Henry, it just further brings up the value of Lamar Jackson, because you have to, like you said, all those are the zone reads to start the game. They are just saying, look, we can kill you both ways here, and we're going to threaten you on the edges with both of these guys early. We're going to make sure that you understand that if you're not on your P's and Q's, you're in big trouble against the Ravens. And like you said, they are in the driver's seat right now. So damn dangerous.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, as you touched on, is just taking a lot off his plate. He doesn't have to press. He doesn't have to go out and win them a ball game. He doesn't even have to line up a quarterback. They had Derrick Henry there, a wildcat quarterback, and they had a big play out of it. So I think that's 21 pass attempts in a game, and you blow the other team out, nearly 300 yards on the ground. If you can do that as an offense, Lamar doesn't have to, when nothing's there, go try to make a play every single time. So I think that's the biggest thing for him, and why I think this team could be a little different than in years past. Speaking of quarterbacks that don't have to do a lot to win, we saw it with the Philadelphia Eagles yesterday as well. another quarterback with only 21 passing attempts in the game. Jalen Hurts barely targets A.J. Brown. The passing game almost doesn't get off the ground whatsoever in that one after the very first touchdown pass. What did you see? Was it more on Hurts, or was this more of a game plan, Matt, when you watched it back?
I think it was a game plan. And I mean, that's kind of been their team the entire year, right? Is we're going to run the football. We're going to play good defense. We can count on both of those showing up week in and week out. And we're going to throw the ball, if and when we have to. And that's more of, I think, their approach to it. So Jalen Hurts, I've been talking with you guys about this all year. He's not like an on schedule type player. We were talking about, would there be rust coming out of the concussion protocol or whatever? I don't think it affects him that much because, it's not like the ball's coming out on 5 plant and you're throwing timing routes. It's just not what they do. And so, I thought the passing game did enough, right? Wasn't great, but did enough to get the job done. Running the football, they were effective. I thought the defense is the reason they'll win a championship if they win a championship. And it showed up. Vic Fangio's done a great job with that group of getting better as the year's gone on, playing with great effort. I was impressed with it. I think it was more the game plan. I think the Packers defense played pretty well. It was the offensive side of the ball that was a bit of an issue for the Packers, but who was it? Denny Green. They are who we thought they were. And we let them off the hook.
Hook.
That's what the Green Bay Packers should be saying. I thought Philly came out and executed their plan well.
You know what, Matt? I'm going to default to just saying you are right. But as a curious observer, as the athletes on the field, as a big fatty, I like to watch the guys with their hand in the dirt. But when you got a guy like A.J. Brown and he gets season low targets of 3 in a playoff game at home against an inferior opponent, in my opinion, it tells me that you're just not feeling confident at the quarterback position because, let's be honest, you're not going to get a ton of separation there in the NFL, particularly when you get to the playoffs. There's good players. They get paid too. But one thing that you get paid to do as a receiver is go make plays, and I would imagine A.J. Brown's gripe is, hey, get it up there. Put it anywhere. Doesn't have to be on schedule. Doesn't have to be off schedule. I'm going to go make a play, which is why we saw him over there reading a book on the sideline about staying present in the moment and not getting too. A little Bob Rotella sports psychology over there. That's like me during a round of golf. I'm doing a lot of reading instead of playing well.
Yes, that's right. Golf is not a game of perfect chances. Football. Yeah.
You're a reader.
I guess the question is,
love that.
I guess the question is, though, obviously the game plan won them that game. They didn't need him to do much. But should they need him to do much, going forward? If they have to, against whether it's the Vikings or the Rams, whether they fall behind, whether they need them in a 2-minute situation, whether the running game's not working, do we trust this passing offense to all of a sudden flip a switch and be able to start letting it up through the air?
I mean, no. And that's kind of, I wouldn't say that. It reminds me a little bit of like how the Chargers got beat by the Texans, right? They came out trying to throw it a little bit too much, in my opinion. They get stuffed. The Chargers got stuffed on that 3rd and 1 early, and then it felt like they kind of went away from the run, right? Went to play action and just couldn't get anything going. So I don't think like if you're playing the Detroit Lions, right, and you're going to get tight man-to-man coverage and pressure, and if that's their approach to how they're going to play the Philadelphia Eagles and they get out to a lead, I don't think they're built that way. I mean, they could surprise us, right? You've got talented guys, right? So if you're going to see a lot of man-to-man coverage, one-on-ones, opportunity balls, go routes, stop routes on the outside, which is more of their style of the passing game, you got individuals that can do that in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. And that's the area of the field, in my opinion, that Jalen Hurts throws it the best, right, is kind of in that isolated matchups. Do I trust that? No, I don't. But that would be, in my opinion, the way that they would have to approach the passing game in order to kind of come back and win. But I also think if you're playing from behind, right, defenses don't have to be as aggressive with man-to-man coverage, isolation routes, that kind of stuff. You can play full zones. take some of that spacing away. And Jalen's always been a guy that holds on to it. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I watch this defense, though, for the Eagles, and I don't know if they're going to be really down ever, down a bunch at least. They might be down a little, but like this defense is something special there coming out of Philly. All right, we're going to take a quick break. After that, we're going to get to Matt Ryan's coveted quarterback of the week coming up next. Wildcard weekend almost in the books, which means it's time for Matt Ryan's quarterback of the week. Who was it from the 5 games we saw over the weekend, Matt?
All right, let's go rookie quarterback on the road, getting the job done. Jayden Daniels. I loved how they used him last night. Again, I don't want to lump him in like in comparisons and it's Lamar, but the usage was very similar early on, running him with the football, right? Getting him comfortable. I thought the go route that he threw early to McLaurin was a dime, right? And a great catch. His poise, his ability to just continue to compete and not be fazed by the situation that's going on around him. Extra credit for not even celebrating after the doink hits and goes through. Didn't even crack a smile. He's cold-blooded, man. And it was fun to watch last night. I'm happy for him. Happy for Dan Quinn, my former coach, getting the job done on the road. Jayden Daniels, he's my quarterback of the week.
I love that pick, Matt. Matty Ice, this guy, Jayden Daniels, is special. And he's tough, and he's smart, and he's mature, and he's clutch. I mean, how many buzzwords can I throw in there for this guy? Well, one thing is he's skinny, and he takes cartoon character hits. He had his face gushing blood like he got cleated in it at one point last night. The dude is unfazed. And you know what was most impressive is going down there, all those opportunities in the low red area, the 4th down failed conversions by Cliff Kingsbury's offense, and the guy just stuck to it. And this offense continued to just hammer at the door. And we all knew if Jayden Daniels had the opportunity to get the football at the end of the game, we knew what was going to happen. We've seen this movie so many times this year. He's been fantastic. I no longer am going to say rookie about this guy because he has played himself into 2nd or 3rd year vestige with his campaign this year. And now that we're in the playoffs, regular season's done, I'm done saying he's a rookie. He's phenomenal.
Yeah, the poise out of this guy is, I mean, he just doesn't look like a rookie. You saw it. I mean, Baker Mayfield and the Bucs, they're the ones making the operational mistakes, whether there's the fumbled handoff, the botched, center snap there. And it was a rookie center for the Bucs who blinked. And it's like, Jayden Daniels didn't blink. He didn't put the ball in harm's way. He was the guy making the play at the end, shedding an unblocked defensive tackle in Kalijah Kancey and scampering out the side. And when they really take the training wheels off him, not say there were training wheels on him, but I'm saying more in the running game where they're really like, hey, we got this special talent back there. Give him the green light to go whenever he wants. It just opens up that offense to a degree where, I mean, their D-line dominated yesterday, Tampa Bay Bucs. They went to town on this Washington Commanders offensive line. I think it was the only matchup that I saw all weekend long where the offensive line that played better lost the game in the Tampa Bay Bucs. The Commanders offensive line got manhandled, and Jayden Daniels still made play after play after play. Was this, Matt, in your opinion, and I know there's been a lot of them over the years, but was this, and you being one of them, was this the best rookie postseason debut of all time?
It was certainly better than mine. I will give you that.
I got your stats pulled up. Do you want to refresh it?
We lost. Whatever it is, we lost. I threw a pick early. I remember that one. So yeah, he was better than I was on the road against the Arizona Cardinals, Kurt Warner and that team. But is it the best performance of all time? C.J. Stroud was pretty good last year in the wild card. Yeah, in the wild card round as well. Quite frankly, I don't care. It was good enough. It was good enough last night, and it was good enough for the Washington Commanders. They needed every bit of him last night to get the job done, and he delivered. So I look forward to hopefully watching this guy perform like that and maybe even better, right? Like really hit the ceiling of what he can become for a long time in the playoffs because he's fun to watch, right? As spectators now, like he jumps off the screen. It's entertaining, and it's impressive. I don't know if it's the best of all time, but it was pretty good.
And I want to just shout out the Tampa Bay Buccaneers home field advantage, which was real and it was raucous. And we talk about the playoffs, we talk about rookie campaign and all that stuff. You're going against Baker Mayfield, one of the most loved leaders that we've seen in Tampa Bay, outside of Tom. But they love Baker. The stadium was raucous. It was wild. And Jayden was just blinders on. All he was focused on was winning that game. And to your point, Matt, didn't celebrate. He's just locked in. He's on to the next. We saw a lot of veterans celebrating yesterday after wins. This guy is on a mission, and it shows week in, week out.
Daniels finished 24-35, 268 yards, 2 pass touchdowns, no picks in what was a scintillating performance. Cannot wait to see what he does for an encore against the Philadelphia Eagles. Thanks so much to Matt Ryan for joining the show, as he does every single Monday. We'll be back with Jonathan Jones after the breaks to break down some news, storylines coming out of Wildcard Weekend right after this. Jonathan Jones, unfortunately, having some technical difficulties. We'll hopefully get him a little later on. But that means we're pushing up Kyle's strongest take of the week. What do you got for us after Wildcard Weekend, Kyle?
I got a couple strong takes. I'm going to start with this. If you're reading a book about keeping your mind in the game on the sideline, it tells me that your mind's probably not in the game. I saw A.J. Brown over there after a 3-target, 1-reception day starting to read some sports psychology books. Does not bode well for the Philadelphia Eagles. If you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan and you say, well, look, our star receiver is a tremendous reader, I got news for you. That's not good. That's the ultimate look at me moment. Look how frustrated I am. He's doing the thing. He's blowing bubbles out of his mouth. He's pissed off. He's this is diva behavior here. This is not what you want to see. Devontae Smith is like, hey, man, I'm over here getting my arm done. I think I got blood on my jersey. You see the blood on Devontae's jersey? That's a guy who's locked in, doesn't need a book, but A.J. Brown needs a book. Okay, I'm going to move on from this. The Bucs should have won that game. I repeat, the Buccaneers should have won the game. They got cute. A little jet sweep action. You talked about the center, the rookie center. I think it was Grant Barton jumps, snaps it a little bit early. The entire play gets botched down there in the red area, 3rd and 1 in a gotta-have-it situation. I think there was like 4 or 5 minutes left in the game. You get an opportunity to go up by 4 points, I believe, in that spot. They don't get it. The Buccaneers, who have done so many things that weren't cute. They were badass. They were rugged. They had Bucky Irving going all over the place this season. Mike Evans, man amongst boys. The Marshawn Lattimore matchup, it wasn't even a matchup. It was laughable. Mike Evans was out there taking lunch money the entire first half. You got to capitalize on this stuff. You're at home against Jayden Daniels and the Commanders, a red-hot rookie, and a team that's been punching up all season long. You got to finish them. You got to finish them. You got to finish them. They got cute on the jet sweep when their offense was having success, and I think they just could have ran their offense. And Liam Cohen stubbed his toe there with that play call and the ball. What is this? The ball mechanics, ball transfer mechanics. I'm just not a fan of that. Don't put any extra risk into your offense when you don't need it. And then the third one I'm going to go to, and this is probably my strongest point. I'm probably going to get the most crap for this. The Derrick Henry move this offseason for the Ravens was more important than the Saquon Barkley move for the Philadelphia Eagles. Because the ceiling is the roof, as MJ said, for Baltimore's offense without Derrick Henry. And you add Derrick Henry into the fold, and they become a puzzle that cannot be solved. They become an offense, a code that cannot be cracked. You've got linebackers who are never in the right position. You've got backside defensive linemen that are unable to crash down on the mesh point of run plays because you don't know if Lamar Jackson is going to keep it. You don't know if Saquon or if Derrick Henry is going to get it. With the Philadelphia Eagles, yes, you have the most prolific running game in the National Football League with probably the best running back in the NFL too. But the question marks still remain on Monday morning as it pertains to Jalen Hurts, as it pertains to his relationships with A.J. Brown, with Devontae Smith, the ability to throw the football, play any style of football game. The Philadelphia Eagles have the best offensive line in football. Of course, Saquon Barkley's a good fit for that. But when it comes playoff time, if that defense doesn't bend but not break, if they break every once in a while throughout the course of a game, you're going to have to lean on Jalen Hurts to throw the football to these guys. I haven't seen it with consistency. Shoot, I didn't see Jalen Hurts for 2.5 weeks. I see Lamar, I see Derek every single week, and you saw it against the Steelers. That's a team that's on the mission. That's a team that when they first made the signing, I said, this doesn't make any sense because they're going to have to beat the Chiefs. How are you going to have to beat the Chiefs? Throw the football. We should just buy more receivers instead of this running back. But I see the vision now. It fits the culture. It fits the team. It makes Lamar Jackson a better quarterback. It takes the pressure off of him and allows him to go like this and pull that S out a little bit further. I think the Derrick Henry move was better than the Saquon Barkley move.
Whew. All right, a lot to unpack there. I'll start with the Brown. A.J. Brown. He said he brings the book every week on the sideline. There's a picture of him 2 weeks ago during the Commanders game. Pulled it out as well when he had 97 yards and a touchdown. I think we're reading maybe a little bit too much into that one. A.J. Brown's just a little bit built different sort of
Just pull the page out. Get the page on a note card. Put it on your little thing. You don't need the whole book. You're not reading chapter 3, verse 7. You're reading chapter 1, verse 3. Okay, just get that on a thing.
Bucs won. They should have. I don't know if the jet sweep was a bad call. You're Liam Cohen. You live by the creativity. You live by the misdirection. That's how they play. To me, that one's more on Baker Mayfield. You're a quarterback in that situation. You got to make that happen. You cannot afford that to happen. If you know the timing's off, you can't try to throw it into a stomach from like 5 feet away. You just got to eat that one then at that point. And then the Derrick Henry move, though, I wholesale agree with that one. I think that offense went to just a different level of holy poop. What do we do when they added Derrick Henry? You just look at what Gus Edwards looks like in Los Angeles right now with the Chargers and how little explosion he brings to that running game. It's just a night and day difference. We talk about, I think, obviously Saquon's huge for the Eagles. They've kind of built the entire plane around Saquon at this point, and they've just stopped trying to pass altogether. But they could have done that before with just a solid running back with how good that offensive line is. And at some point, they're going to need to pass. So it may even be detrimental that they've leaned on him as much as they have. But for the Ravens, they don't lean on him. He's just another cog in the machine that takes this machine to this unbeatable level that I do agree that which team am I more afraid of right now? It's the Baltimore Ravens if I'm the rest of the NFL. So love those strong takes as he brings to the table every single weekend. We're going to be back after this with maybe Jonathan Jones or maybe a little overreaction versus reality. You're going to have to stay tuned and figure out which one right after this. We got Jonathan Jones joining the program to break down some news and storylines outside of Wildcard Weekend. And no bigger news today than Mike McCarthy officially out as head coach of the Dallas Cowboys as his contract expires there. Not fired, expired. So, Jonathan, what was the genesis of this, and who are some of the front runners to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys next year?
Yeah, so I reported that the Cowboys and Mike McCarthy couldn't agree on contract length. So one can assume or extrapolate from that the Cowboys wanted fewer years, that Mike McCarthy wanted more years. In the past couple of weeks, as I've been talking around the league, obviously McCarthy signed a 5-year deal when he went to Dallas. Agents that I spoke to said there's no reason that he should take anything less than 4 if and when he were to have signed an extension. I don't know what the Cowboys were offering Mike McCarthy, but clearly it was not something that he found appealing to him. So now he and the rest of his staff, they were all on expiring deals. They are, as of now, free agents. They can go anywhere that they want, interview wherever they want. That's the deal there. As far as head coach candidates, I mean, guys, we could talk about all the usual suspects, if you will, and all the guys that we've talked about for the Jets and the Bears and the Saints and the Jags and all that stuff, or we could just talk about Bill Belichick. We could talk about Belichick, who still wants the NFL all-time wins record, who was in Chapel Hill, a place that, though he was somewhat convincing at his introductory press conference there about how much the place means to him, were you convinced? It's a $10 million buyout by June the 1st. what is $10 million to Jerry Jones? What is $10 million to Bill Belichick, who made 2.5 times that just last year with the New England Patriots? You talk about staff that he's assembled there. A lot of that staff could come with him to Dallas, right? And so all these things, are going to pick up steam. Belichick to Dallas, that is a rumor that you are going to hear far and wide for some time. When you're going to hear Bill Belichick and people around him, his proxies, say publicly that they are committed to North Carolina, they're not going anywhere. That's what they said last week. That's what they'll continue to say, of course. That could ultimately be true, but I would have to imagine that there will be an exploration, if not on one side, on both sides for this potential union.
Well, you know what, JJ? I hadn't even thought about Bill Belichick, but I think maybe he has had his roots in the ground long enough in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, to maybe Game of Thrones this thing properly and just allow his son to take over at UNC, and he can just head on out the door to Dallas, Texas. It would be interesting. And we were talking earlier with Matt Ryan about potential suitors. He was saying it's either going to be a young guy who has a look-ahead approach with the understanding that it's going to be a tough sledding for a few years, or, in my opinion, Jerry goes and gets the best guy that he can for the job. And I think we can all agree that Bill Belichick is on the short list of people that we can't argue with his production. We can't argue with his expertise, and you're going to need that when you're making a change, particularly in a place like Dallas. I think Belichick would be great.
Yeah, there was rumors at the time when he signed the North Carolina deal that it included a clause that Steve would be the heir apparent to him at North Carolina when he did hang it up or when he did leave. Is that true? And would that still happen should Bill Belichick leave to go to Dallas?
Yeah, I mean, I saw the report, obviously. There has been nothing to substantiate that in the time since. So, sometimes great stories, unfortunately, aren't true. Not saying this one isn't, but no one has been able in the past 5+ weeks to substantiate that.
All right, Bill Belichick's former team, the New England Patriots, were the first to make a move at the head coaching position in this offseason cycle. Not a big surprise. As soon as they fired Gerard Mayo, everyone and their mother was saying Mike Vrabel was going to be the next head coach of the New England Patriots. They made it official yesterday. How did this all go down? And was this an admission of mistake, or was this kind of the guy they just wanted the whole time, but just weren't able to get him last year?
Yeah, I think the answer probably doesn't have to be one of the two. It can be both, right? Because you got to go back to when Robert Kraft signed Gerard Mayo after the 22 season to be the coach in waiting. He didn't want to lose him. At the time, the Titans are doing pretty well, had gone to 3 straight playoffs, an AFC title game, I think like a year or two before that. So if you really, really liked Mike Vrabel, there was a decent belief that, well, he's not going to be available for us. Also, just real quick, when we talk about coaching trades, no one ever trades an active head coach. That is just fodder for us to talk about, but that stuff doesn't actually happen. So that's been a pet peeve of mine that I just wanted to hop on the soapbox when people talk about trading coaches. I don't think that's happened in 2 decades. So anyway, Robert Kraft wanted Mike Vrabel after he fired Gerard Mayo, after Gerard Mayo did not give him a lot of confidence in the last month of the season in the direction and vision and preparation of the 2025 New England Patriots. So he fires Mayo with obviously a very good idea that he's going to be able to get Mike Vrabel. The whole league knew as soon as Vrabel scheduled his in-person interview in Boston on Thursday of last week, it was over. It was over. He was going to be the head coach. And we know that the day before, the Patriots ran through the Rooney Rule and got 2 out-of-work coaches who happen to be black men to go ahead and knock that out. I mean, honest to God, let's just look at this for one quick second, because those are the rules. They interviewed 4 people, and the Patriots wanted the best of the best, right? And we all were agreeing that the top 2 coaches on the market were Mike Vrabel and Ben Johnson. And we can include Bill Belichick in there if you want, but obviously he wasn't a candidate to go to New England. No one had Byron Leftwich and Pep Hamilton on any list anywhere. I mean, had been out of work for 2 years. It's funny that you say Pep Hamilton, JJ,
because what was Pep Hamilton known for? Pep Hamilton was known for the failure to protect Andrew Luck in Indianapolis, and you've got a guy in Drake May who needs to be protected in New England.
So, I mean, it was egregious by the Patriots to not run any sort of real search. Again, I've talked with the league about this a lot, where sometimes I'm not going to fault Robert Kraft for wanting to go get his guy. Just like I didn't fault Mark Davis for wanting John Gruden. You know that that's who you want and that guy wants you and you can hammer out contract details. I don't actually think that's really a problem. But when we make a mockery of this process that is put in place so that everything's fair and equitable, it looks bad for everyone, and it certainly looks bad for the Crafts.
Do you anticipate changes being made to the Rooney Rule? Or is this
I agree with you on that.
Yeah, and Mike, and to your point about changes, I think that you're going to have to look at it. I know that the league had sort of considered potential succession plans. So, like, go back to the Cincinnati Bengals when they lost Brian Callahan. Their quarterback's coach was Dan Pitcher. Everybody in the league knew that Dan Pitcher was going to get the offensive coordinator job with the Cincinnati Bengals. He had earned it. He deserved it. And no one of any race or creed thought any differently. But then the Bengals still had to do a search and bring in 2 people of color in order to fulfill that role. I think there has to be something that the league has to do for when the obvious thing winds up being obvious, just to protect everyone else and the whole sanctity of the whole process to begin with.
Yeah, because in a situation like that, you are just being put out there as, a minority head coach, basically knowing that it is a sham. So unfortunately, they get disillusioned with the process, thinking that I'm getting these interviews and they didn't have a shot in the first place. So unfortunately, those situations, I do agree, need to be rectified. Kyle, I want your take, though, on the Vrabel hire and what he brings to the table as a football guy, and what kind of changes do you expect New England? What's the culture going to look like in that building going forward?
Well, I want to start with saying that if I were a New England Patriot last offseason when Jerod Mayo became the head coach, I would have been excited because of a few things that get me excited as a player. The opportunity to play for a guy who played the game of football at the highest level, who won at the highest level in the National Football League, and a guy who wore the colors that you wear every Sunday. That's very important to me. And it was obvious after this season that Jerod Mayo didn't live up to the expectations that Robert Kraft and the New England Patriots set out for him. But we can carbon copy that same guy and add the experience in with Mike Vrabel. He's somebody who has been a head coach prior to this. Granted, it has come with bumps in the road. The record hasn't been all too impressive at times. But one thing that we've seen from Mike Vrabel is his ability to coach a football team, be the leader of men that has been talked about in this hiring cycle. And he's a New England Patriot. And that's a guy that when he put his helmet on, I'm watching slow-mo clips of him putting his Patriots helmet on, and I'm just thinking, my God, he looks like a Patriot and he looks like a coach. And that's the same thing I thought about Jerod Mayo. But Robert Kraft said, now he is a guy who's been there and done it before in Mike Vrabel. And he knows how to handle situations. I can't wait for the press conferences. Matt Ryan was talking about that on Sunday. I cannot wait to get back to the Belichick-style press conferences of less is more and salty rather than sweet. That's really what I'm looking forward to.
All right, JJ, I'll get you out here with this just real quickly. Any idea on OC-DC candidates that we should be on the lookout for heading to New England?
In New England, obviously, offensive coordinator is Josh McDaniels. And it's Josh McDaniels because... obviously, right? He has more than a decade of experience in New England, a lot of familiarity. The Raiders are still paying him out, so you got a lot of offset money involved there. He lives still in New England. He and Mike Vrabel have worked together and have that relationship. And lastly, Mike and Kyle, whenever we talk about these coaching searches and the defensive coach are always like, well, who's the offensive coordinator because he could leave and get plucked somewhere. Nobody's taking Josh McDaniels to be their head coach. Right, that's over with. As far as defensive coordinator goes, I'll give you 2 names. Yeah, I know that Shane Bowen, who is with the New York Giants, is a name that's been thrown out there. Another one that I would keep a close eye on is Lou Anarumo, former Cincinnati Bengals defensive coordinator, just got released from the Bengals last week. He's interviewing with the Indianapolis Colts, probably some other places as well. But I look at Lou and I say, that's a guy who over the past couple of years, and Kyle, you know this because you were standing on the other sideline, that's a guy, if there's one guy in the NFL who can consistently stifle and stymie Patrick Mahomes, the best football player in the NFL. Not all the time do the Cincinnati Bengals win, but no defensive coordinator has had as much success as regularly as Lou Anarumo. And if you are the Patriots in the AFC and you plan to be competing for more Lombardis, you better go make sure that you can get through Kansas City. And so that's why keep a close watch on Lou Anarumo.
Ooh, that would be an all-time retread staff, right up there with like the Chiefs for just like guys who have been around it. All right. Thanks, Jonathan. As always, joins the program on Mondays. We're going to take a quick break. After that, going to get to overreaction versus reality right after this. It's overreaction versus reality coming out of Wildcard Weekend, and we'll start with this, Kyle. Mike Tomlin, head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, should be on the hot seat after losing his 6th consecutive playoff game and now 8 straight years without a playoff win.
I'm going to say overreaction because I go to the same bagel bar once a week, and they make a fantastic sandwich. It's called the Philly cheesesteak sandwich. And you know what? It's fantastic. I would say it's a above 500 type sandwich, but I get it all the time. So I'm eating just above 500 sandwiches all the time. Eventually, I'm going to want to try that Sicilian sandwich that's on the menu because it could be better. Here's the deal. I don't think it's a hot seat situation for Mike Tomlin, but I think that people have grown tired of eating the same sandwich every single year. And I think that if he had an opportunity to go to a new building, a new program, he could reinvent himself and he would be appreciated somewhere else more than he is in Pittsburgh. Obviously, people fell in love with this guy when he took the reins over from Coach Bill Cowher, won a Super Bowl with a few players that Bill Cowher had on his roster. And then now people are scratching their heads saying, why can't we win? I think it's overreaction. I think he is a really good coach, but at the end of the day, things have gone stale in Pittsburgh. And in my opinion, they need to make changes.
The problem, well, one, I don't think he should be on the hot seat. Not this year. This one,
they were just make a change seat. It's not the hot seat. It's the, try out a different seat.
I don't think he should be on the hot seat. If this happens again next year, yes. And the biggest issue, if you're pointing at where's Mike Tomlin gone wrong, what he has hired at OC and DC over his tenure since losing Bruce Arians, since losing Dick LeBeau, 2 legends on each side of the football, has frankly not been good enough. That he has not identified guys who are on the bleeding edge of innovation on offensive and defensive football. They play an ultra-conservative brand of football. They are not up there trying new stuff the way others around the NFL are. And if you're not, in this day and age, you're getting passed up. And you're seeing that with this Pittsburgh Steelers team, unfortunately. All right, next one. The Texans defense is the best defensive unit remaining in the playoffs. Overreaction or reality after they bombarded this Chargers offense on Saturday?
I'm going to say overreaction because of the fact that they can run the football and hold the ball, or because the Eagles can run the football and hold the ball for 10 minutes at a time. You get cold over there on that sideline. And when you couple not being on the field with that stifling defense, that bend but don't break Vic Fangio defense, that's my answer. The Philadelphia Eagles are the best defensive unit in the playoffs.
Yeah, the Eagles, this one is an overreaction. The Eagles are a house. They're so talented. There's no place to attack them. We thought, oh, maybe their linebackers wouldn't be good. They have all pro linebackers. Not only Zach Baugh, Nakobe Dean's playing at a Pro Bowl level himself. All right, last one real quickly here. A format shakeup is needed to make Wildcard Weekend more interesting. Chargers proposed it. Do we need it?
I don't know, Mike. Make it make sense to me. It's like win the division and you get the higher seed, right? That's what it currently is. I mean, if you're complaining about it, just go get better.
I agree. No shakeup. It's an overreaction. If anything, get rid of the 7th seed. I don't need the higher win percentage team. Go win your division, like you said. That'll fix everything. That's our show for today. Thanks so much for tuning in to Pushing the Pile. We'll be back tomorrow on YouTube, 9:30 a.m. Eastern, breaking down Pete Prisco and his power rankings. Until then, keep pushing.